Sarah stood motionless in the chaos, her ears ringing as alarms blared, and the crew shouted orders that barely reached her consciousness. She was vaguely aware of the flash of motion as officers rushed to their stations, faces filled with the urgency of the attack. But none of that seemed real. Not now. She was frozen, caught in the suffocating weight of something far more immediate. The pirate captain, a towering figure clad in ragged armor, loomed in front of her on the main view screen, his voice distorted by static. His face was hidden behind a menacing mask, and the ship's dim, flickering lights cast long shadows that danced ominously across the walls. This wasn't just a raid. This wasn't a random attack. It was personal. And the voice that had come through the comms, the voice that had warned of the invasion, had torn into Sarah's thoughts, gnawing at her like a persistent echo she couldn't ignore. "Captain!" one of her officers shouted, snapping her back to the present. "The outer hull's been breached. We need orders now." Sarah's thoughts scattered like smoke, her pulse quickening as her mind raced. The plan had been set, clear, calculated, and precise. But this sudden assault threw everything into disarray. Why didn't we see this coming? Every angle of the attack had been accounted for. Every system had been double-checked. Yet the breach, the sudden chaos, suggested something else. Something more sinister than mere pirates. Something she hadn't anticipated. "Seal off the lower decks," she ordered, her voice unwavering despite the dissonant thrum of fear clawing at her chest. "Divert all power to defense systems and prepare countermeasures. We're not losing this ship." Her officers wasted no time in executing her orders, moving with the efficiency and trust that they had in her leadership. But Sarah couldn't shake the gnawing feeling that this attack was part of something bigger, something she had yet to fully understand. "There's something familiar about this, something I missed." Her gaze flicked to the crew around her. No time for distractions, she reminded herself. Her duty was to protect them, to lead them through this crisis. Yet, as she moved toward the central command console, a quiet voice inside whispered her doubts. Could I have trusted too easily? Commander Rayner approached, his expression a mask of grim determination. For years, he had been her most trusted ally. Together, they had led countless missions, their bond forged in battle. But now, there was something different about him. His posture was rigid, his gaze intense, but Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this than met the eye. "Captain," Rayner said, his voice calm but tinged with the urgency of the situation. "We've managed to slow their advance, but we need a real plan to repel them entirely." Sarah met his gaze, her mind whirling. His cool demeanor, once a comfort, felt like an anchor pulling her deeper into uncertainty. The flicker of hesitation in his eyes didn't escape her notice. "What is he hiding?" "We'll divide our forces," she responded, her tone steady despite the churn of unease in her chest. "Push them back sector by sector. We can't let them take control of the bridge. We'll need every last ounce of firepower we have." Rayner's jaw clenched, and for a moment, he hesitated. A moment just long enough for Sarah to catch the flicker of doubt in his eyes. He's hiding something. Why didn't he just agree? "Understood," he replied, though his voice had lost its usual conviction. "I'll lead the charge myself." "No," Sarah countered sharply, her voice firm. "You're needed here, coordinating our defense." "I'll take the second unit." Rayner's mouth tightened, but he didn't argue. "As you wish, Captain," he said, though his tone felt colder than usual. The air between them shifted, the silent tension hanging heavier than before. Sarah could feel the weight of the decision, but there was no time to dwell on it. "There's something off. I need to focus on the mission," she told herself. The battle began in earnest as Sarah and her team moved through narrow, crumbling corridors, their footsteps echoing in the silence of the ship's lower levels. The blaring alarms and shrieks of combat reverberated around them, but Sarah's mind was elsewhere, haunted by that voice from earlier, the voice that had felt too familiar. It wasn't until they reached the heart of the skirmish that everything finally clicked. As the pirate captain loomed before her, a chilling recognition set her heart racing. "Captain Sarah, always so brave," the pirate mocked, his voice still distorted, yet unmistakably familiar. "Did you think you'd outrun the ghosts of your past?" Sarah's body tensed, her thoughts spiraling. The hairs on the back of her neck stood up. She had heard that voice. She had trusted it before, fought alongside it. And now, it twisted in her chest like a cruel mockery. "Who are you?" Sarah demanded, stepping closer, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Why do you know me?" The pirate slowly removed his mask, revealing a face she hadn't seen in years, a face she once called a friend. It was Rainer, his expression cold, his eyes devoid of the warmth she once knew. "No, it can't be." "Rainer?" The name escaped her lips in a whisper, as if speaking it aloud could shatter the reality she now faced. Her stomach twisted, bile rising in her throat. How could you?" Rainer's smile was all sharp edges, devoid of the camaraderie they once shared. "Surprised? You should be." Sarah's mind spun as the shock settled in. "Why? Why betray us? Betray me?" The words tasted bitter, each one more incomprehensible than the last. Rainer's expression darkened, his eyes narrowing as he stepped forward, his tone low and venomous. "Betray you? No, Sarah. I've chosen the winning side. The galaxy is changing. Project Resurrection is the key to the future. A future I intend to control." Sarah's breath caught in her chest as the realization hit her. "You've been using the pirates to steal it," she said, her voice a mixture of disbelief and fury. "You're willing to sacrifice everything we stood for power." Rainer's laugh was a cruel, hollow sound. "I'm ensuring survival, Sarah. The old ways are dead. You're too idealistic to see it. The galaxy is changing, and we can either be the architects of that change or we'll be crushed beneath it." His words cut deeper than the blade of a knife. Survival at what cost? She thought bitterly. She had trusted him, more than anyone else. And now he had shattered that trust. Her fists clenched, fury bubbling beneath her skin. "I trusted you. We all trusted you. You were my brother in arms. How could you?" Rainer's cold smile widened. "And that's your weakness, Sarah. Trust. You've always been too soft, too naive. It's why you'll lose. It's why we'll win." The confrontation turned physical, their words spilling into the violence of the moment. Blades clashed, energy weapons crackled, and their bodies collided in a storm of anger and pain. Despite Sarah's fury, she fought with purpose, precision, a reflection of the woman she had become. But Rainer was relentless, his every move now driven by a twisted belief that the ends justified the means. Just when it seemed like Rainer would overpower her, a figure burst from the shadows, Malik, a young officer who had always looked up to Sarah with unwavering loyalty. He deflected a fatal blow aimed at her, positioning himself between her and Rainer. "Captain!" Malik shouted, his voice filled with both fear and resolve. "We've got this. Together." Sarah's heart clenched with a mix of gratitude and guilt. The young officer had thrown himself in harm's way to protect her. She had failed him by not seeing Rainer's true nature sooner. With Malik's help, they managed to subdue Rainer, forcing him to his knees. Sarah's chest heaved as she looked down at her former comrade, her breath ragged. "It's over." Rainer's gaze was unrepentant, his lips curling into a smirk. "You think you've won? This is just the beginning. Others will come, stronger, more merciless. You can't stop it." Sarah's jaw tightened, her grip on her weapon tightening. "Then we'll be ready. As Raynor was escorted away, the crew began to regain control of the ship. The battle was over, but the war had only just begun. Sarah stood amid the aftermath, her heart heavy, but her resolve unbroken. She had lost so much: trust, comrades, her sense of security. But in the end, she had prevailed. And that was what mattered. "Captain," Malik said quietly, his voice hesitant. "What do we do now?" Sarah exhaled slowly, her gaze hardening with determination. "Now, we find out what Project Resurrection really is, and we make sure it never falls into the wrong hands. The galaxy can't afford it." The crew rallied around her, their faces filled with the same resolve. They had faced betrayal, but now they were stronger for it. They were united in purpose, and nothing could break them.